Well, since I had worked on that Zenith 9S262 chassis, I got interested in this radio, which was given to me a few years ago now. I did a first look on it, and the first look video is inaccurate. I believe I called it a 411, but I am pretty sure that this radio is a 420. Now, one of the things that's missing is there should be a plate right here, I believe, which would have had the nameplate on it, which would have said the model and serial number and so forth. That's obviously missing. I just did not get it with the radio. And then we've got kind of a mess down with the speakers here. This speaker here has got big holes in the cone. I don't know if any of the missing pieces of the cone are still there. I can try to see if I can mend it. This one I think is not. I'll have to take the speakers out and see if they're rubbing. I'll have to check the field coils to make sure that the field coils are not open or shorted. This speaker has the audio output transformer, and we've got this cable. Now, of course, there's a diagram, a color coding diagram on this speaker. Well, it's pretty difficult to determine what colors those wires are. You can kind of guess. It's pretty faded. So I think that what I may have to do is I'll have to probably get into the radio chassis itself and trace the wires through so I can verify which one is red, which two are green. There's two green wires. I believe this is a green wire, and I think this is a green wire. Obviously, we know the black and white wires are pretty obvious. So I think what I'm going to do is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull those speakers out of there, and I'm going to see if they're good. If those speakers are not good, I think I may not continue on with this project. It'd be pretty hard to find replacement speakers. I could make something. I can put permanent magnet speakers in. I could come up with a way to convert everything. Do I want to do that? I'm not sure. So the first thing I have to do is I have to pull the speakers out and verify if the speakers are restorable. I know this one's got big holes in the cone, so I can glue something in there. I can mend it. This other one, I don't know. So I'm going to take the speakers out. So this is the results of what I have to work with. This radio was worked on. I don't know if the word "worked on" is the right term to use, and I mean that facetiously. But whoever handled the speaker didn't know what they were doing. You know, this was damaged by someone. And the pieces of the cone are missing. They're not there. And there's only two screws holding this thing on. I haven't checked the voice coil or the field coil yet, but what I do know is, I don't know if you'll hear it, it's rubbing. Now, when the radio plays, that'll probably sound like a little bit of distortion because it's rubbing. Now, what I can do, I mean, there are people who will recone the speaker, but that's very expensive. What I can do is I can take some film stock and shim that and kind of loosen the spider on one end of it anyways, and see if I can't take the rub out of it. And I might try to do that. I haven't, like I say, I haven't checked the voice coil or the field coil, which I will check. The back plate on the chassis is missing. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe what I should do, I should probably pull the chassis out of the cabinet and see what I've got to work with underneath. You know, if this thing is really a mess, the serial number, of course, is missing. The model number is missing because that would be on the back plate tag. You know, if there's and somehow whoever took the chassis out originally didn't know how to put it back in, it's kind of messed up. So I'll check the voice coil and field coil on this speaker, and if they check out good, I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the chassis out of the cabinet and see what I have to work with. And if it looks too bad, considering that the back plate's missing, the serial number's gone, I have two options. One option is just don't do it. Don't work on it. Work on something that's more promising. That's one option. The other option is to forget about trying to repair either of these speakers, put some permanent magnet speakers in there, and then just come up with some electronic transformers and conversions and stuff. I looked at the schematic, and I don't think the field coils need to be in the circuit for the chassis to work. I don't think they have to be in the circuit. But if they do, that's not a problem, because you just put these speakers, lay them in the bottom of the cabinet, and just connect up the field coils. So I'm going to see, I think I'm going to pull the chassis out. I'll check the field coil, the voice coil. If they're good, if they're not good, well then I have to look at the options. I think I'm going to pull the chassis out and take a look at what's going on with it, because I know somebody else had worked on it. So checking the voice coil of the speaker, I have 2.7 DC ohms. And the field coil checks out as 1,381 ohms. So I pull the chassis out. It's amazing what some people do. But they had this thing all shimmed up. This is glued in, actually. And the reason that they did that is because probably there were rubber shock mounts where the screws would actually go in to hold that chassis into place, and the chassis is normally floating. It's not hard down to the shelf, and so somebody just put this stuff in to hold the chassis up. And I noticed that when I looked at all of the controls in the front, they were down about a good, I would say, 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch too low. So what is the word? I don't know. It's been kind of cobbled. I guess that's the best. The chassis is over there. Let me get my flashlight. There's the chassis. I haven't looked underneath. That might be a shocker when I look under the chassis. There's one remaining speaker in. So this all has to be pulled out. I'll have to get the right rubber mounts. I'll have to find screws to hold it in right. I'm really disappointed that the nameplate is missing off the back of it. If that was there, I'd be more inclined to want to really go ahead with this. I'm still on the fence about how far I'm going to go with this radio. So let's take a look under the chassis. Just had to show this. This is what they use to prop up that chassis. Here we got a nice piece of a ruler. I have a feeling it's a sawed up yardstick. Pieces of rubber, nails. It was just nailed down, that stuff was. Can you see it? Yeah, there's a nail. There's one there. So the rubber mounts and screws system, that can be dealt with. The next step is to find out what butchery was done on that chassis. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to find too nice of things under there. But this, I find this amusing. Century Fabrics. This is probably an antique in itself. It looks like this might have been done many years ago. Who knows? But that's how they had that chassis sitting in there. To show a scene of the bottom plate before I take it off. These brown stains, that's the yardstick and rubber conglomeration that was stuck in there. And I could just barely see circles where the rubber pads originally went. So obviously screws went in from underneath and went through a rubber pad and then screwed into the chassis. I'm sure that's how it worked. If I do restore this, is how I'll put it back. But the next step is to see what I'm going to see underneath this panel. I've seen worse. It's not horrible, but these capacitors, I'm assuming that this Mallory pack, this is probably an electrolytic capacitor of some sort. So is this. I'm assuming that these capacitors, of course, have been put on to replace these. It looks like the person that did it did not put those in parallel with those, which is good. That's okay. I don't know what this is. This fat capacitor down there. I have to take a look at the schematic. In my opinion, the chassis is restorable. I mean, I can clean all this up. I think purists would like to say, oh, let's just stuff these or leave them in place. I don't know that I'd do that. I'll probably put terminal strips in. I mean, how many times are you going to pull the chassis out, take this thing all apart to show someone, see, it all looks original. We got, these are stuffed stuff. That, to me, I don't want to offend anyone. I really don't like to, but in my opinion, I think it's just a waste of time. It's to stuff capacitors so that they look absolutely original. You know, 20, 30 years down the road. Okay, I was kind of cut off on that last clip because I ran out of space. These capacitors are newer than that work that was done. How do you like this rubber band deal, by the way, to hold this in place? Pretty snazzy. I don't think the person that did the yardstick and rubber shims on the bottom is the same person that did this. Those capacitors look kind of newer than that work that was done underneath the chassis looked. I would think that somebody a lot of years earlier did that, and it's probably because the rubber mounts rotted. So anyways, I think I'm going to go ahead with this project. So anyways, this is a interstage audio transformer. The power amplifier in this involves three number 59 tubes, a 59 driver, and a pair of 59s in a push-pull configuration. You know, that's a heck of an audio circuit. It really is. It's too bad the speakers that are in there weren't of a better quality. I don't know what the quality of those speakers are, and of course the one with the ripped up cone and the rubbing voice coil, what have we got there? I'm almost tempted to come up with a way to just put different speakers in this radio just so it'll sound good when it plays. I think these are condensers. I think they pulled condensers out of here. Here's replacement here, replacement here. That yellow capacitor tells me that it wasn't too many years ago this kind of work was done. As far as the pads to place this in the cabinet properly, that's all doable. There's a guy that sells replacements. That's easily obtained. Can ohm resistor here, can ohm resistor there. I'm sure I can find chassis mount replacements for those. I'll take these out. I'm not going to leave them in there. I'll put terminal strips in so I can properly mount these capacitors. Like, look at this mess here. I mean, it worked, and here's this rubber band deal that didn't last very long. It worked, but I can do better than that. I think I can do a better job. So my main concern, this is restorable as far as I'm concerned. My main concern is what to do about the speaker that's got big parts of the cone missing and the voice coil is rubbing. Do I go through the trouble to try to recenter it and glue in pieces of paper to patch it in? Or do I just put in better speakers and just have those the field coils of the other speakers just sitting in the bottom going along for the ride? I've done that before. That leaves the original speakers in the cabinet. They just won't be mounted and they just won't be used. So I'm going to have to think about that. Here's the main speaker of the two for the Zenith, and although the cone is in very good condition, the inside of the voice coil is rubbing on the pole, and if I look in there, well, you can see that it's slightly misshapen. Now that happens with age. There's a lot of factors that could cause that, but this speaker more than likely you'll probably hear that. Maybe yes, maybe no, but I think you will. You'll hear that rubbing when it's playing. So I'll have to check the field coil and the voice coil. So I can't find any information, any listing of the DC resistance of any of the coils, the field coils, or the audio transformer. So I'm just going to have to check them and assume that they're okay, because I don't have any reference to what the DC ohms should be. So what I'm reading on the label here, these 6 terminals are the 6 wires coming out of the cable. This one's broken. That's why they had an alligator clip on one wire, and then this is bent out. I assume that if I try to tighten those, they might break. But anyways, these first 3 on this side, green, red, green. Well, the green wires must be here and here. That's the green wires. And the red wire in the middle has got to be this. So I'll have to verify that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I'm looking at. I kind of wonder about this audio transformer. It's center tapped, obviously it's push-pull, and I've got my meter connected to the center tap, and on this side 207 DC ohms, and if I go to this side I have 185, so that's 22 ohms difference between this side and this side on the center tap. So the center tap appears to not be center tapped. That's an indication that transformer is cooked. To look in this a little bit deeper. So the DC resistance across the audio transformer is 394 ohms. That means that on either side of the center tap it should be, what, 197 ohms? And I'm not getting that. I get 185 on one side and 207 on the other side. It should be equally center tapped because it's a push-pull circuit, and if it's unbalanced in the transformer, I'm not sure if that's good, bad. The transformer itself looks a little cooked. So I'm kind of wondering if it is. I don't know how to call this because there's no documentation to say what the actual DC resistance of that audio transformer should be. But the center tap is not, it's off. And it shouldn't be off because if it's a push-pull circuit, it should be center tapped. And it should be center tapped exactly. This kind of looks like a field patch-up from a war casualty, doesn't it? I patched it up. I can fill this in if I want to. I'm not sure if I'm going to go that far, but the reason I patched it up this far is I didn't want all of this flopping around so that the rest of the cone can just be crumble out or come out. And I use this as paper, is filter paper. I had to use that on to kind of hold these two pieces together. But like here, you know, this is Eileen's tacky glue, and I really recommend for patching cracks and speaker cones where you don't need patches like this. Eileen's really does the job. It really does over anything else. Eileen's tacky glue. But this speaker will never sound good because the voice coil's still rubbing. And I could shim it and try to center it. I could loosen that screw. I can cut a hole here so I get to the other screws so I can loosen up the spider suspension and shim that and try to center it. But what's the point? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this radio connected up and see if it works at all just the way it is, because I think this is a basket case, and this is going to end up being a part 1 video and only a part 1 video on this radio. I don't see myself taking it much farther. For one reason in particular, I'm almost certain this audio transformer is fried. And how did it get fried? I would wager that it got fried because it was misconnected here, the outputs from the radio, because they couldn't really tell the difference between a brown wire and a red wire, for example. So I don't know any other reason why that transformer would fry. But I'm going to kind of patch it together, plug it together, just to see if anything works on it at all. So what I'm going to attempt to do is to power this thing and see if it works at all, or if it smokes. I don't know why I'm wasting my time on this. This thing really is a parts radio at best. It's really not, in my opinion, worth even to get it working. I think I'm wasting my time. One of the things that's happening is these metal receptacles for these pins, they're breaking. I just attempted to plug this green wire in, and it broke the socket. The metal is breaking off. It's very garbage, really. These speakers are entirely nothing but garbage. Even though I patched up this one just to test it, and I'm pretty sure this audio transformer is fried. Now I have a universal vacuum tube push-pull style replacement with various impedance outputs on it that might work. I don't know if this will work on it or not. I have this big clunker here in my stash. This one, I don't think, this is only 500 ohms, I think, on the primary. And I think I measured a lot more than that on the original one if it's not opening up. That's why I wanted to power it, just to see what it does. So one of the things I could do is the baffle that these speakers mount on in the cabinet actually comes out. that whole assembly comes out. I could replace that with a 12-inch single speaker if I could get a transformer to work on this radio, and put a 12-inch speaker in there. That'll solve the problem, so we wouldn't be using the twin speakers. Nothing electronically, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but electronically it's definitely not going to be original. The person who soldered this line cord on really did a sloppy job soldering it on. I don't know what to say on this. I really don't. All of these are loose. So I'm going to have to use clip leads or some other way to attach this stupid thing. What a piece of junk. It really is. I've got this thing all connected. What a mess. These speakers are absolute junk. Now I'm going to run it up, but I'm going to use my homemade solid state rectifier to replace the 80 rectifier, so that as I'm bringing it up, if I smell any smoke or see any high amps, that'll kill it. So I'm going to try running it up. Finally, I got power into the thing. There's no B+ because I have the rectifier pulled, but the pilot lights are lit. And the thing is, what I went through to get that, I have a line cord soldered right into the input of the transformer. I'm not sure if the power switch is bad or not. It may still be good, but here's what I found. He had a bad solder, the guy that worked on this, and I'd like to talk to him personally. He had a bad solder connection on one end where he had this end wired into the transformer. This end of it goes to the other side of the switch. This goes to the other side of the switch. And then when I soldered the power cord he had in here directly onto the transformer, when I powered it directly onto the transformer, I get nothing. Nothing came through. The power cord was bad. I mean, I have to ask myself, why am I wasting my time on this piece of junk? You know, this thing, it was a gift. And this is where the adage of, do look a gift horse in the mouth before you bring it home. Okay, well, the next step is now to power it up with B+ to see if anything burns up, smokes. I suspect things are going to burn up. So now I need to check B+ voltage. .578, 580, 81 volts B+. And the rectifier out. I'm going to use my solid state rectifier on it to run it up slowly. Oh, 590, it's going up. Why would it vary? Well, that's because my variable power supply is going over 115 volts. By the way, 115 volts is an issue. I have 120 volts line current here. That's $5 or $5. Yeah, $5. 5 volts over the line voltage this is designed to run on. Okay, and so here we go. I've got my solid state rectifier in place of the 80. This capacitor, by the way, here is the one that it's replacing, the original Zenith one. It's an 8 mic. This is an 8 mic capacitor. The one the other person put in is a 22 mic. Now, you know, the rule is, yeah, you can go over, but the point is if you go too high, it could flash over the vacuum tube rectifier. Now all I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this up so that we're going to get B+ voltage into the thing. I want to see, I'm 95% sure I have this connected right. Note I didn't say 100%. Who knows what might smoke. But I'm going to bring it up very slowly and hope that now I'm seeing negative voltage there. I need to recheck this, find out where that's going. That doesn't look right off the bat. What a comedy of errors. I had my probes plugged into the meter wrong. Okay, let's start bringing the power up and see what blows up or smokes. The first sign of smoke or anything blowing up.
Back up. Nearly 20% of cases in the last week of July were kids.
I feel safer. That's like one of the main reasons I wanted.
Adrian Cecido is about to begin 9th grade. He was one of 100 people at this vaccine pop-up clinic in Compton.
I want to be prepared and stay in.
Isn't that amazing?
Mandatory for those traveling north. After 16 months, Canada reopened its border to vaccinated Americans this morning.
That's absolutely amazing.
That we're going to be able to see our American neighbors, friends, and in many cases family members come back to our community.
299, 300 B plus volts.
CBS News.
The cleanup is underway in Grant County, Wisconsin.
Take two of threesome. The first steam locomotive train began its
I gotta tell you,
between Albany and Schenectady.
I'm at disbelief that I'm getting anything out of this. I expected it to blow up. I really did.
Nathan Ames of Saugus, Massachusetts patented the escalator. On August 9th, 1910,
all of its last troops, and we're not even 100% out of that country yet. Basically,
Almost a small amount of people can make a difference.
where members don't have to hit Curry Avenue and Beloit. Sure. End of World War rendered unconditionally the following day. August 9th, 19...
You know, the speakers don't sound too bad.
On this day,
Even with that big chunk missing.
resignation was official. Mr. Nixon,
Maybe I can reuse them.
had been facing possible impeachment. The previous...
I didn't think it would work this good.
The American people announcing his resignation.
I really expected something to blow up.
On August 9th, 1975...
I wonder if the 80 rectifier, it's a 280 globe, wonder if it's any good. I've got a solid state rectifier in there because I wanted to run it up slow.
And it wasn't even Mardi
I don't know.
The Superdome was opened as the home...
But I think I'll post this video now and then make some decisions from there. But I never thought this thing would work
August 9th,
that good. I am amazed.